Time travel, music, charm, RPG, multiple endings. These are just a few of the words that I heard surrounding the praise and hype for Chrono Trigger before playing it for the first time on the Wii Virtual Console in 2012. The game was originally released on the Super Nintendo in 1995 and was next to impossible to get in PAL territories such as Australia, partially due to what was quite possibly a lack of faith in such a game translated into English selling well abroad. But what was definitely not lacking was the desire by 3 already well-renowned developers and artists who worked on games such as the Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest series to create a really unique game. At a millennial fair, a young swordsman named Chrono bumps into a chirpy yet mysterious girl named Mal, who carries a mysterious pendant. Chrono and Mal join their friend and scientist Luca in experimenting with a teleporter, but something goes wrong when the machine reacts to Mal's pendant and makes her disappear through time. The relatively simple mission of rescuing Mal is only the beginning. Travelling through a variety of time periods, from the prehistoric era to the distant future, Chrono, Mal and Luca meet up with a knight-turned-anthropomorphic frog, a robot with almost human personality, and a very strong primitive girl, who help them to confront an entity named Lavos before it destroys the world. The narrative is not complex, yet it is compelling and well-paced and structured. It features several little twists, surprising revelations of new time periods, and the right number of emotional beats complete with a variety of humorous and serious moments that are balanced and are not out of place or conflict with each other. The characters are generally likable and memorable, and are understandable in their motives, development and role in the story. There are a variety of side characters, but not too many that you'll either get confused or potentially fatigued from too many conversation pieces, many of which you can read while moving around, which helps with pacing. It is interesting that the main character Chrono is the game's only silent protagonist, who never speaks, but communicates with facial expressions and gesture, which essentially makes him an extension of the player. This, combined with the aforementioned relative lack of complexity in the story, are debatable in their appeal, but it feels like the developers had a clear idea of a plot, setting and characters, and executed them beautifully. Speaking of beautiful execution, the graphics, while mostly dated, were impressive back in 1995, and are still pleasant to look at today, in regards to colour, character animation, lighting, and cool looking effects and sequences that do look a little 3D. In fact, it was deliberately meant to mostly be a cross between Secret of Mana and the Final Fantasy series. The similarities between the game's aesthetic and the Dragon Ball comic series are almost unmistakable, considering the artist of said comics, Akira Toriyama, was one of the key figures in coming up with the concept for the game. The graphics complement every moment of the storytelling, with laughter, sadness, and more shown in every frame of character animation. It is hard not to be pleased by the colours and character animation during the hours of exploration to be had in the game. The map designs are really good, where it's not too hard or too easy to get lost, which makes looking for items and secrets as well as going from one section to another a generally fun and seamless experience. The one nitpick with that is that you can't get stuck on characters and terrain. Not often, but it happens. The aforementioned concept of time travel is pulled off so well, not just in the story where it can be so easy to mess up in regards to plot holes and paradoxes, but also in simply visiting each time period. Time travel becomes more open later in the game, and it is during that time where you can really appreciate how the millions of years that pass affect the landscapes and characters. Changing events throughout history will very likely keep even those who are not necessarily interested in or knowledgeable of time travel glued to their chairs. Indeed, it is hard to put the controller down when the aforementioned fun and seamless experience is mostly down to the battle system. First of all, the concept of random encounters is largely dropped. Enemies are generally visible on the map and can be walked around should you wish not to battle them, with the exception of some scripted encounters, namely with bosses. When a battle begins, you don't go to a separate battle screen. This means the pace of exploration is generally up to the player. There are less instances of revisiting areas only to be hounded by random encounters with enemies, potentially every few seconds. However, you should fight as many enemies as possible to gain experience, especially for later enemies and bosses, which is fine given how fun and understandable the battle system is. The game employs an active time battle system, where a character can take action, such as do a physical attack or use items, only when their battle gauge is full. How quickly it fills up is dependent on the character's speed. There is a sense of urgency for making decisions, but there's a wait option, which is more for beginners. What makes each character unique are their special attacks or techs. Luca, for example, is proficient in fire magic, whereas it is water magic for Mal. What is really awesome is that two characters can pull off a double tech when both their battle gauges are full, plus there are triple techs with 3 characters that are more awesome still. This means that who you have in your party of 3 at any given time is important, as well as the use of items, equipment and accessories that can modify stats such as speed, magic, defense and so on. For example, if you find yourself having trouble with enemies using fire attacks, there are fire-resistant items that can be more helpful than the simple healing items. There's generally no right or wrong way to choose or customize characters, though you may have to backtrack to an earlier save point after trying to figure out an enemy's weakness, which can be hinted at with conversations with other characters. Almost regardless of that, the game is relatively easy. In early development, testers thought the game was cruelly difficult, and the battle system is ultimately simplistic. However, in a world of RPGs where random encounters, filler content and complicated customization may have a tendency to be the norm, it can be argued that that's not exactly a problem. It is purely down to how the player explores and customizes in overcoming challenges. This makes Chrono Trigger a good introduction to RPGs, or more specifically JRPGs or Japanese role-playing games. Speaking of the ease and simplicity, the game is also fairly short in contrast to other RPGs, where it takes roughly 20 to 25 hours to complete. But it goes deeper than that. The side content, which is mostly present towards the end of the game, is generally optional, and allows for character and story development, as well as the possibility of obtaining some powerful items and experience. The game also has a fair amount of replay value with multiple endings, and a New Game Plus feature that allows you to start a new game with the same levels, techniques and equipment you had at the end of the game, minus money and story related items. Using this, you have the option to fight the final boss at a much earlier point. When and how changes the outcome. The Nintendo DS version, which I have played some hours of yet can't get footage from for this review, also features more side content and a new ending, plus minor enhancements and the anime cutscenes from the PlayStation version. That version, as well as the mobile and Steam versions, should probably be avoided. Whether you get the SNES or DS version is up to you, keeping in mind that the DS version features a better English translation, especially in regards to Frog's dialogue, though you may find the side content in the SNES version to be more focused and coherent. Either way, it's cool. It is hard to not leave the analysis of music in an RPG like this towards the end of a review, but it's for a good reason. The soundtrack of Chrono Trigger is one of the best, if not the best, in the history of video games, ever. But to be fair, it's the development of the music that's important to understand. It was Yasunori Mitsuda's ambition to compose music rather than work as a sound programmer on low pay, and Chrono Trigger was essentially his debut. The use of recurring melodies for consistency, as well as timing each tune to go for 2 minutes to avoid looping as much as possible, are 2 examples that demonstrate the unique quality of the soundtrack. As well as the exciting intro/main theme, there are the different themes for each time period, like Corridors of Time, or Wind Scene. As well as character themes, Frog, and Robo. Which are all well composed and have good melody, all for the purpose of making the world of a game unlike any other. The development didn't go smoothly, however, with tracks lost due to a hard drive crash, as well as Mitsuda working himself to the point of sleep and exhaustion. Melodies, such as the end theme, would appear in his sleep or dreams, and he would promptly wake up to work on it. He got very ill from working. Thankfully, Final Fantasy composer Nobuo Uematsu was there to finish the soundtrack. Why is it important to understand this in regards to the music and indeed the game's development? Because the passion that went into creating Chrono Trigger is almost unmatched, where the developers generally had a clear idea of a dream they wanted to fulfill. And they did. I had only reasonable expectations when playing the game for the first time, and they were exceeded, though it may have been partially due to the fact but it was escapism while going through a difficult time. Chrono Trigger is a fun and artistic game that still can make you feel emotional even today. The impact was still there even when seeing the end credits once again and reflecting on the journey for the purpose of doing this review. The game's flaws are very minor, where the coherence, focus and simplicity alone make for a more than exceptional console JRPG experience, complete with stellar graphics, sound and gameplay. To sum it all up, Chrono Trigger is one of the, if not the, greatest games of all time. This review is the conclusion of the first year of Video Games for Fun. Now that I've done quite a number of uploads, I'm taking a break, but not for long. Before I do, I want to thank my family and friends, some of you who may be watching this. Hello. Thank you to my friend Mary. Thank you for helping out on the multiplayer commentary, which did start out on Video Games for Fun and is now on Viddy Plays, which is my secondary Let's Play channel. A quick thank you to the developers who made the games. Yep. And of course, I want to thank you right there, the person watching. Whether you've been watching for hours, days, weeks, months, perhaps the whole year, thank you for this journey. Thank you. Thank you so much. And have a good day or night or whatever it is.